I also I want to ask you a few questions about being held by the Taliban. Like, I also in one of your interviews, I heard you say that they let you go, and then they said, well, unfortunately, or we're not gonna let
Fixer
your
before, yeah,
translator, your
translator.
fixer go.
Yeah.
And and to them you said, well, okay, I'm not gonna I'm not leaving without him. I'm curious, like,
Yeah.
walk me through that. Why did you do that?
I wouldn't,
You
false bravado.
you
Well,
were you
I
were
tell you
there
what
for
happened.
3 months, and yeah,
Well,
yeah,
because we were together in a cell for 4 months.
yeah,
In journalists, we use the term fixer, but it sounds a bit
yeah.
droll, but yeah, he's more than a translator. He was my guide. During my captivity, my only way of communicating, translating, but he was like my TV producer. We'd worked together for many years, but there'd been a whole number of incidents where previous to our kidnap, Western journalists had been kidnapped. They were released, exchanged for money, ransom, but their Afghan fixer was killed. And in fact, the year before, a good friend of my fixer and mine, an Afghan, he was kidnapped with an Italian journalist. The Taliban released them in exchange for a ransom, probably, and they killed the Afghan. So when we were kidnapped, it was really preying on my fixer's mind that Sean, my TV company would get me out, but leave him. And
Did he mention this to you?
yeah.
Did he
We
say, "Hey, I
talked
don't think"?
about it. It was well, in fact, the
Wow.
Taliban talked about it as well when they one day, they had this bizarre formality. They don't like to see themselves as terrorists. They have their own rules, and so they came in and formally accused me of being a spy for foreign governments and my fixer, and then walked out the room. And my fixer said, "I went, fuck, we've been kidnapped. It was official." And he said, "Well," he said, "we're dead. They kill spies." So, but the Taliban guy, the commander, before he left the room, he said, "Look, we're going to investigate you." And he had this kind of charisma of a sociopath. He was very charming, but he said, "Look, don't worry about it. You'll either both be killed or you'll both live. So, don't worry about it." And he was referring to this previous case where a Taliban had kidnapped an Italian journalist and let him go, but killed the Afghan. But so he referred to that. So we discussed it straight away. And so I made a promise. I vowed that we would either both live or both die, that I wouldn't walk out of there without him. I said that to my fixer. Now, at the time, I don't know how truthful that was. I needed to say that because he was keeping me alive. Unless he could translate and communicate, I couldn't get better food. I was trying to talk our way out of there, or talk our way to get a phone call, and I managed to get a few things, and I needed him. So at the time, I wasn't. We made many promises to ourselves, but I didn't know how strong that vow was. But then when we were released, the Taliban came in and again formally read out the judgment of the court. It was like this bizarre court hearing. We're all on the ground. I now look like Robinson Crusoe. I got a long beard. I've lost a lot of teeth. And the commander had this scroll, and he reads out the Taliban Shura, the leading council, said they found that I am innocent, that I am a journalist. I went, whew, nice one. But the Shura, the governing council, would vote to kill me, to send a message to other journalists not to try doing what I do. I was like, oh, fuck, I thought I was, So 1 minute they're saying you're innocent, then I'm like, oh, no. And then he had great time. He said, but don't worry, me and the leader, who's now head of the Taliban, we vetoed the ruling and we've elected to let you go free. So I was like, oh, dude. So I told her I was innocent,
Yeah.
but we're going to kill you.
Oh,
Then they
man.
turned to my fixer and said, you're guilty. So I knew that meant he's dead. And they separated us. I was put into a burqa, a woman's, the covering for women.
Yeah.
Got into a car, put on the side of a road whilst they changed cars, and we were driven into Pakistan to be exchanged. And I remember wearing a burqa. I'd never obviously worn one. The filament where the eyes, this I never realized for women, not only is it purdah, they're imprisoned and cut off from the world, but you can't actually see out properly. You have to squint. So it's the hellish. But I remember squinting and seeing a bunch of men on the side of the road waiting for my car, second car. The Taliban were changing cars. I saw about 20 Arab fighters coming, and I was like, God, what's the life expectancy if they find out there's a white male dressed as a woman on the side of a road? And I started laughing at the ridiculousness. But anyway, being in a burqa, none of these guys looked at me or even talked to me. When I get to the Peshawar in Pakistan, take the burqa off. The Taliban are on the phone to some Western hostage negotiator, and they were obviously agreeing the release. And I knew, I was wondering where, I knew my fixer was somewhere else. They separated us, but I don't know what happened. It just came over me, and I said, look,
Hmm.
to the time, I'm not going unless you release my fixer. It's two, and they're looking at me like, no, only one. And they said, forget your fixer. He's fuck him. And I remember turning away, praying, and I said to God, please give me the strength, because I had about 10 seconds, because after 4 months in captivity in a dark cell, every sinew in your body wants to be released. And I've got 2 children. And I knew I couldn't keep this up, but I just went, no, I'm not going. You'll have to kill me. And they were like, in the release, it's very dangerous for both sides. And they didn't want to fuck it up. So they're looking at me like, oh my God, this guy's a lunatic. So they went, okay, we've got both packages, they called us. They were talking to my American hostage negotiator. So they agreed to release both of us. But if they'd called my
That
bluff,
is
maybe
nuts.
30 seconds later, I would have left him behind.